Welcome to the 80-20 Baseball Podcast. Strike! The 80-20 Coaching Masterclass, our weekly get-together where coaches go from new to good and good to great. Mastering the fundamentals and the art of coaching.
All right, welcome to this week's get-together. Coach Bo with you. Always good to be here. Time to get better as coaches so we can get our teams dialed in, get our teams better, our players better in all the different ways that are important. As you all know, it's Thanksgiving time, Christmas, etc. My family travels over to California for Thanksgiving and for Christmas. My wife's family is located in the Fresno area, kind of a low-key hotbed for youth baseball, high school baseball, even college baseball. Great baseball out there in the Central Valley. So nevertheless, this time of year, the episodes scale back, but we'll still have a good episode each week with one key thing that we can use, one key coaching strategy that we can use to get our players better, our team better, and winning in all the different ways that matter at the youth game. This episode, we're going to talk about weighted bats and underweighted bats. So training our hitters, our batters, with weighted bats and underweighted bats. We'll talk about the pros and cons of that. Next week, we will talk about tacit versus explicit knowledge. I recently finished a book called Streetlights and Shadows by Gary Klein. He dives into tacit and explicit knowledge in depth. Why was I not taught this in depth in high school or junior high? It's fascinating and very useful to know the difference between the two. And we're going to talk about in next week's episode, the difference and why most of us coaches make such a big mistake coaching up explicit knowledge versus tacit knowledge. These are two things that we use every day of our lives. And I think the school system, as far as I know, hasn't done a good job of explaining the differences, or at least getting us as we graduate from the school system to identify the difference, to be aware of the differences and to understand the pros and cons of both and how to improve them using separate strategies because they are very different. So we'll talk about that next week. And by knowing the difference between the two, you can't unsee it when you're out there coaching. You will be able to break your practice into two groups. Everything you do during practice, everything you do with your players, you'll be able to, after hearing next week's discussion, identify whether whatever you're doing with your team is improving their tacit knowledge or whether it's improving your players' explicit knowledge. And I'll explain why most coaches erroneously spend way too much time coaching up one of these. And it's a huge competitive advantage just sitting there, waiting there for us to take advantage of. Now, the best way to support this podcast for free is to leave a review. If you're getting something out of it, leaving a positive review on your podcast app doesn't take more than a few minutes, and that is huge. I don't have advertisements on this. I've turned down quite a few advertisements. I'm trying to get this information as efficiently to all of you in your busy schedules and your tight schedules. So just taking a few minutes and leaving a positive review is really, really helpful. And sharing it, just sending off the link to this episode to a friend or family member would be super awesome. So weighted bats and underweighted bats. This is nothing new to the baseball world. Training with heavier bats is nothing new, but it's become more popular. Technology has allowed us to quantify the results a little bit better, to measure the results. And I'm a fan of using weighted bats and underweighted bats at the youth baseball level and at all baseball levels, but it's not a magic elixir. It's part of a batter's training routine. And we're going to talk about the pros and cons. And without knowing the pros and cons, it's hard for us to clearly see what we're going to get out of it and how it benefits us and also what it's not going to do. I remember 30 plus years ago, I was in the backyard of the house I grew up in, Yorba Linda, California, home of drag racing king John Force. So there I was in the backyard in the house I grew up in, Yorba Linda, California, and I'm in the swimming pool. Was I working on my dives? No. Treading water? No. Was I working on my butterfly stroke? Maybe a little. Was I working on my tan? Definitely not at that age. I was junior high age, 13, 14 years old. I would go out to the swimming pool with my old game bat. I went out there in the pool. This is circa 1993, and I would take 100 to 200 swings in neck deep water with the baseball bat, working on trying to create a faster, more powerful swing. I'm almost certain I got this strategy from Lenny Dykstra. Yeah, that Lenny Dykstra. Nails. So I've been aware of speeding up and getting stronger swings by various means for over 3 decades. So the weighted bat and underweighted bat phenomenon, that wave that's hit the baseball world over the last 10 years, has been something I've been really interested in, right? I'm a fan of them, and I think they should be a part of every hitter's routine, not every practice or even every week during the season. But I think they should definitely be a big part of the offseason routine. When I say big part, 20% of the routine. Again, they're not a magic elixir. They're not just all of a sudden going to make a hitter into Mickey Mantle or Willie Mays, Ted Williams. And here are the pros and cons as I see them with the weighted bat and underweighted bat routines, training method. One, swinging a heavier bat forces hitters to be efficient with their swing. The inefficiencies in a player's swing are going to be felt much more by the hitter with a heavier bat. If they're long or loopy or get to a position in their swing that's not ideal, is not optimal, it's not efficient, they're going to feel it much more. When they have a heavier bat, they have to be very efficient with their swing path. And if you go watch the greatest hitters of all time, Ted Williams and Barry Bonds come to mind when I think of just the great hitters, power and average. Those two guys had some of the shortest swings. By swinging a heavier bat, it forces hitters to be more efficient with their swing. One of the number one problems hitters have when it comes to their swing is having extra movement or inefficient movements. Another big benefit of using a heavier bat, and I can't give you specific ounces. Each kid will be a little bit different. Each age group will be a little different. So I'm not going to give you numbers here. And that's something you should test out. One good way for youth baseball, especially like the 8-year-old, 10-year-old, 12-year-old level, is get an older brother's bat, a neighbor who's older, somebody you know is in high school. Maybe they have an old bat they're not using, and borrow that. That's a good start. It gives you access probably to a free bat that's heavier. That's a good place to start. I was watching a coaching clinic video recently where the college coach talked about going up to 75 ounces-ish with their hitters. So that's a substantial increase. But now these are college kids, so that's different. Definitely wouldn't do that at the youth level, of course. I would test it out because you get to a point of diminishing returns when you get too heavy. Each kid's going to be a little bit different. If their swing just gets terrible, then you know you've gone too heavy. If they can't somewhat keep that bat in their somewhat normal swing path, it's too much. Now, back to the other big benefit, as I see it, for youth hitters using weighted bats, is that it increases the strength in their forearms and their shoulders, their wrists, their hands, even their upper back, and all those connected areas. Pretty much any area that's utilized in a swing, and you can even say the legs or the core too, it strengthens those areas. But it definitely, in my opinion, strengthens the wrists and the forearms a lot. And now, strength doesn't necessarily mean better results, but in this case, having stronger wrists and forearm strength and hand strength, I believe this helps a hitter have a swing path that's more malleable, more adjustable. There's more adjustability in their swing. One of the big indicators, if you're assessing a hitter's swing at the youth level or at any level, you usually don't see it at the higher levels because those players don't make it that high. The players that just have one swing path, they just have one swing path every time they swing. What I've seen is hitters that don't have the strength to swing their bat typically have one swing path. They can't adjust it up, down, definitely not in and out. They can only swing it through one path, which of course is not good when it comes to the game because that strike zone is a lot bigger than one swing path. So one of the biggest flaws that I see with youth hitters is that they don't have the strength to swing their bat, which leads them to swinging through just one path, through one area. And even that's a struggle. There's no malleability to their swing. They don't have the muscle strength to swing their bat to other parts of the strike zone or adjust it mid-swing as they see that pitch dip or run or cut or move. So by getting our kids stronger with their forearms and their wrists and the other connected areas, gives our hitters a better chance of being able to make better contact, more solid contact on a wider variety of pitch locations. So hitters that can manipulate the bat more easily are able to hit a wider variety of locations and pitches, better control the bat. They're in control of the bat. The bat's not in control of them. It's a great way to add usable strength to our players. Now, the underweight bat, as I see it, has fewer benefits, but I do like swinging an underweighted bat so players can feel that quick, fast swing. They can feel that quickness because you can be as strong as you want as a hitter. If your swing is really slow, that's not good either. So we want to have a strong swing that's malleable and can hit pitches in different locations at different speeds, but also optimizing our bat speed. So bat speed, of course, is important too, not just strength. We want to combine the two. Now, in the coaching plan, the 80-20 baseball coaching plan, there are 2 batting practice design templates for your team that have these weighted and underweighted bat stations embedded in the optimal spots. It shows you exactly where I recommend putting them and how you should structure it, combining different things like tees, toss, and pitches. That can all be found in the 80-20 baseball coaching plan with everything else you need to be a great coach. Underweight bats can be found online. They sell them on Amazon. You can buy them at Dick's Sporting Goods. You could also make your own with a wooden dowel. Go to Home Depot, get a wooden dowel, maybe sand it down a little bit, or just use it as is. I would recommend, if you do the wooden dowel, cutting it so it's the same size, same length as the game bat your kid is using. And I wouldn't use real baseballs with the wooden dowel unless you tape it up good. But even then, I would use wiffles. And in the 80-20 baseball coaching plan, you'll see exactly how I structure this with different types of balls, things like that. Now, after you're done with a training session that's utilized weighted bats and underweighted bats, I do recommend players get some reps swinging their real game bat. I do think they should finish with their real game bat because at the end of the day, of course, come game time, they're going to be swinging their game bat. That's the bat they need to have the best feel for. Also, if you're going to do a high rep training session with heavy bats and underweighted bats, it's probably a good idea to have a regular batting practice session with game bats, your regular bats, in between that heavy dose of heavy bats and underweighted bats before the next game. Just something to keep in mind. Not a huge deal, but something to keep in mind. One other thing, if the underweighted bat's skinnier, the barrel is skinnier, say you get a wooden dowel, it's skinnier than the game bat, hey, nothing wrong with that. If anything, you want the bat to be skinnier, at least the barrel part, the sweet spot part, you want that skinnier than the game bat. Make it more difficult. So it actually acts like a 2-for-1. Not only does it help the speed and power of a swing, but it also improves that hand-eye coordination by challenging hitters using a smaller implement, a skinnier implement. So yes, I am a fan of weighted bats and underweighted bats. They're not a magic elixirs. Anybody who tells you they are is either trying to sell you something or doesn't know what they're talking about, in my opinion. To me, they can be a great part of a hitter's training routine, but they shouldn't dominate the routine, but they should be a part of it. And it can be done fairly cheaply if you can get access to an old bat of, say, a kid that's older, or go on eBay and get some old wooden bat from the 80s that somebody's selling for like $30. Some of those are like 35 ounces. There you go. Now you got yourself a heavy bat. Insofar as it works for the kid and doesn't just totally screw up their swing technique, at least, you may need to tape it up so it's playable, but nevertheless, you can be creative with that. That's a great thing about all of you in the audience, the 80-20 baseball audience. I know you all are dialed in. You can figure all this extra stuff out. You can piece things together and make these tips, these strategies great for your situation. So this is a good time of year for weighted bats and underweighted bats. I wouldn't start this stuff right before the first game. I would start it no later than January, because there's going to be a little soreness, things like that. And it might affect the swing initially a little bit. But again, it should just be a part of a kid's training routine. All right, everybody. I do appreciate all of you that have left positive reviews for this podcast. That is the best way to support this podcast. Thank you for spending a few minutes and leaving that review. That really helps. Just got an email today from a coach who just found the podcast, probably because they read a positive review and they said they've already gotten a ton out of it. Pumps me up. Let's keep taking care of our health so we can be at our best for our families, our close friends. Let's take this information. Let's put it into play. Should all be proud of yourself for being coaches. Easily one of the greatest things to hang our hat on at the end of the road when we look back years from now, decades from now, when we look back, easily one of the greatest things that we could hang our hat on, a sense of pride that we were youth baseball coaches. All right, y'all take care. Until next week, adios.
This has been the 80-20 Baseball Podcast, the 80-20 Baseball Masterclass. We got this. Now, let's take the field.